So I don't know you guys. I'm really excited for Thursday. I don't even know if I can narrow it down. I think, mashed potatoes, gravy, the pumpkin pie. There's so much to look forward to. There you go. See, that's what's up. It's the good stuff. But I can't wait. Thanksgiving's my favorite. It's gonna be a great time eating and hanging out with family, watching football. It's a good day. But today's a big day for One Church, and I don't know about you guys, if you ever have either at your job or an organization you were a part of or something like that, you kind of have like a calibration meeting. It's kind of like where you're brought in, and if the CEO or the boss or someone gets everyone together, and it's kind of a chance to have like a company outlook, like here's where we're at, here's where we're going as a company, or maybe you have like a family meeting where it's a chance to kind of, let everything be known, what's happening with the family, things like that, or think like, in our government, the State of the Union address, like opportunities to kind of just know as a collective group, hey, here's what's happening, here's where we're going, here's what we're doing. It's kind of a chance to see where everything is at and what is next. And these can be really valuable for organizations because it kind of gives a vision moving forward. I remember at River Glen, the church I worked at in Wisconsin for almost 8 years, they had one of these shortly after I was on staff there. And they brought the staff together and some of the leaders together and said, hey, here's what we're doing moving forward as a church. And this is where they laid out this vision that they were going to plant 5 more new churches in the next 10 years. And it's out of that vision, actually, that One Church exists today because River Glen became this church that was all about helping start new churches. And we were a part of that. We were actually number 6. After the 5 were planted, we were a part of that next wave of church plants that River Glen started. And so it's that chance, that vision to get laid down and says, hey, here's where we're going. And when that group goes together in that direction of the organization, of the company, of the church, whatever that may be, good things can happen together. But talks and conversations like these can help lead a group, a family, a company, in our case, our church moving forward. And this is what I want to do today together as One Church. I want to celebrate what we've done so far as a church, to see where we're at as a church, and I want to talk about where we are going as a church. And if you're new today or you're newer to this church, I want to say welcome. I'm so glad that you're here because here's the deal. This is a great day to be here because you'll have no questions really on what we're doing, what we're all about as a church after today, hopefully. And if you are a part of One Church, again, it's so good to see you guys. I'm so glad you're here. And today's an important day for you to know what's next and how you play a vital role in helping us make that happen. Because it's crazy to think that in January, it will be 3 years since Danielle and the boys and I moved back here to Pittsburgh to get One Church started. In this upcoming March of 2020, it'll be our 2nd birthday as a church, and it's been a crazy journey so far, and I'm excited for what's to come. And a church family talk like this is important for all of us because it's really good for us to kind of take a moment, whether you've been here since pre-launch, you came when we launched, you've come here, in the past few months. It's good for all of us to just kind of know, hey, let's celebrate what's happened so far, but let's look ahead to what's coming. And what we always focus on as a church, every decision we make gets filtered through our mission. And our mission as a church is this, and I'm going to encourage you guys to memorize this because this is what we're all about as a church. As a church, our mission is to work as one to help people follow Jesus. And if we're going to be one, we have to know where we are going together so we can do this thing together. Every decision, every ministry, everything we do gets filtered through this mission of working as one together for a collective purpose to help people follow Jesus. And everybody plays different roles in that, but together we are one because the truth is together is better. When we're all in this together, the church is healthier, the church is better. We do more impact for people's lives in our community together. And today is about continuing our mission together. The purpose of the church, and not just our church, any church, has always been to go and make other followers of Jesus. Jesus says this in Matthew 28, 19 and 20. This is right after his death, his resurrection. He spent his last few moments with his followers on earth, and he's about to go back to heaven, and this is his last command. And he says this, therefore go and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit, teaching them to obey everything I have commanded you, and surely I am with you always to the very end of the age. And so Jesus' final command to his followers is to go make disciples of all nations, all people everywhere. This is that love your neighbor mentality. Everybody's your neighbor. You love them, so you show them the love of Jesus. And the hope is they become followers of Jesus too, that they become disciples. And a disciple is a committed follower of Jesus. Not just a fan, not just an admirer of who Jesus is, because I think a lot of people are that in our culture where it's, yeah, I like Jesus, I like what he teaches, it sounds good to love your neighbor as yourself, I like that, but fewer are actually disciples of Jesus. Committed followers who said, my life is about following Jesus, giving him lordship over everything in my life, and living out the mission he's called me to. A disciple is all in. And so Jesus says, go make them. Go make disciples. And these are disciples themselves who are doing this. And Jesus tells them to go make disciples and teach them to obey everything that Jesus taught, because the disciple obeys Jesus. A disciple of Jesus obeys and follows and listens and understands and applies his teachings to their lives. And Jesus promises them that he will be with them always. And this was the church's purpose and mission. They themselves were disciples. They were still learning to know what it looks like to follow Jesus. They were still learning to know what it looks like to obey Jesus in every aspect of life. They didn't have it all together, but they were committed. And that's what a disciple is. A disciple is not having everything figured out. A disciple is a committed follower of Jesus. And they were disciples who made disciples. This is what they were about. They were always about the mission of Jesus. And they weren't doing it for the sake of building numbers. They were doing it for the sake of life change and transformation to people around them. So Jesus gives this command, and this is what then those followers went and lived out through the church. In the book of Acts in the Bible, what this is the history of the early church. It's how the church got started, how it progressed, and it was all about making disciples. In Acts 2:42 through 47, this is what Luke writes about what the church was doing, what they were all about. He says this: they devoted themselves to the apostles' teaching and to the fellowship and to the breaking of bread and to prayer. Everyone was filled with awe at many wonders and signs performed by the apostles. All the believers were together and had everything in common. They sold property and possessions to give to anyone who had need. Every day they continued to meet in the temple courts. They broke bread in their homes and ate together with glad and sincere hearts, praising God and enjoying the favor of all the people. And the Lord added to their number daily those who were being saved. And so this is, if you want to know what the church is all about, this snapshot is right here, just what the church was doing. This is what they were all about, living out this mission, and this is what they did. They were devoted to the apostles' teaching, which was Jesus' teachings that they carried on. They never stopped exploring, never stopped learning about what it looked like to follow Jesus. And it wasn't for knowledge that they did this for life change. And so when Jesus was saying, you forgive over and over and over again, they were reminded of that in these teachings, that they forgive those who wrong them. When Jesus taught to love your neighbor as yourself, the apostles continued that teaching so the people would know, I'm called to love all the people around us. They devoted themselves to the teaching. They devoted themselves to fellowship. And that's a very churchy word that we like to use for authentic relationships. Hanging out together, being one together in unity and surrounded on the mission that Jesus calls us together. One of the worst things a church can do is make people feel like they don't have people to connect with in their church. A church should be about fellowship and hanging out together and connecting with each other. They were about the breaking of bread, and that was a way they described communion. They would take communion together every day they gathered as a reminder of who Jesus was and what Jesus did through his death and resurrection. They prayed together consistently. Every day they were praying about God, what God was doing. They were giving their requests to God of what they were hoping to see him do and how God would work. They prayed together. Signs and wonders were happening. Miracles were happening all over the landscape of where the early church was at. People were being healed. People were coming to Christ. It was amazing. And they had everything in common. And what that means is it doesn't mean like they had all their likes and dislikes were the same. It doesn't mean they looked the same or acted the same or came from the same status. All of them were different in that sense, but they had everything in common in the sense of they were united on one purpose, and that was following Jesus. And when that trumps everything else they were about in life, that became the thing that they were united on with everything else they did. They met the needs of those around them. If they had extra stuff, they would sell it so they could meet the needs. If someone had 2 coats and someone was in need of a coat, they would give that coat to the person who needed a coat. This is what they were all about. If they saw a need, they were doing everything they could to meet that need. They met daily in the temple courts. They gathered as a church for worship, for teaching, kind of like we do on Sunday mornings here. They ate meals together, and every day people were being saved. They were becoming disciples. Disciples were making disciples, and here's the kicker. This was happening every day. Every day. And people still had their jobs to do and their families to raise and all those different things, and they were still focused on this is the mission that Jesus called them to do. They worshiped, they served, they loved, they led others to Jesus by their actions, by their love, that they lived their life on purpose and for the calling that Jesus gave them to help others know and follow Jesus themselves. They were disciples making disciples. And the rest of Acts is about this movement of the church living out Jesus' calling. And we as one church, we are called to live out that same exact calling. It's why we started this thing. It's our purpose and it's our mission to work as one to help people follow Jesus. If we ever lose that purpose, and let me be very clear, if we ever start going in a direction where it's not about helping others follow Jesus, we have lost our purpose as a church. We've lost it. If we ever lose that, we just become simply a club of Christians who hang out on Sundays together. And I never want to be that. In fact, I'll quit. That's not what I'm about. That's not what we need to be about. This is not what the church is supposed to be about. The church is supposed to be a group of disciples helping to make other disciples. Instead, we are called to be a movement of Christians reaching out. And we started this thing for that very purpose, for those who would believe in Jesus because of the message we continue to bring as a church, just like the early apostles did, to help those far from God find their way back to him. For the unchurched and de-churched to connect to a faith community. For lives to be changed because the church is living out Jesus' call and mission. And if lives aren't changing, we're not being the church. So today is a reminder of our mission. A look at what we've done and where we're going. And here's what I want to do really quick. I want to celebrate what we've done. And some of you have been here from the get-go, so this will be a review for you. Some of you guys are newer, so this is going to be maybe some new news for you. But here's what happened. In January of 2017, my family moved here. And we moved here and we knew just a couple of people. And here's what we knew was going to take place. We moved to this community where we didn't know many people. We knew 3 other people from Wisconsin were going to move here with us. And we knew my brother-in-law, Corey, because he randomly, like a month into us living here, got transferred to Pittsburgh for his job. And so we had 9 people for sure to be a part of this church. That was it, 9 people. All right, we got 9 people, let's go. Whatever we can do with 9 people, we'll just keep working at it. We'll keep going, and that's what we started with. We knew that, and even the Wisconsin people, they didn't get there for months after that. So we just started going and meeting people, and over the next 14 months, we started meeting people and building relationships. We served our community with different festivals and summer events and fall events and things like that. We started meeting out of my home every other week for a while for our launch team gatherings. Let me just tell you, that freaked people out. Like we would be at a community event and they'd see like one church stuff. They'd be like, oh, tell me about your church. And we would tell them what we're all about. And they're like, well, where do you guys meet? And I'd be like, we're meeting out at my house right now. We'd love for you to come. And they're like, no. Like they're thinking like, I'm going to get killed there. This is a cult. Like it's over from that point on. Like it scared people, which I understand. Like if I don't have a relationship with God, I don't do church stuff. If some weird pastor dude invites me to their house the day I met them, I'm not going either. So I understand. So we started meeting at our house. And then to help that little scary thing about meeting at our house, what we started doing before we ever launched our church is we started meeting here at the school. We met in the couple classrooms over here every other week, and it made people a little, easier to come check us out, but it was still weird. People like, a church at a school? That can't be. And it just made people feel weird, but we started doing that. We dreamed together, we planned together, we prayed together, all while not really knowing what was going to happen. The full confession, if you were to ask me 2 months before we launched, how's the launch going to go? If I was honest with you, I'd be like, I have no idea. I have no idea if anyone's going to come or what's going to happen. We didn't have anything, all the stuff figured out yet, so I have no idea what's going to happen. That was my thought process going into it. But here's the deal. A group of 9 people developed into about 20-something people before our launch, and we said, you know what, let's just launch this thing for the community. And so here's what I do. There's only a few people in the room. If you were part of the launch team of One Church, that means if you were part of anything we've done before March 18th of 2018, why don't you stand up really quick? I'm going to embarrass you guys really quick. So, yep. There's a few, absolutely. Let's give the launch this. This is a few of them. There's more serving and One Kids and things like that right now, but these are the people who said, you know what, let's get this thing started. Let's just try it. And then on March 18th, 2018, we launched One Church for public services. And we sent postcards everywhere, and some of you guys, I think, came just because you got annoyed by the postcards. You're like, the fourth one? Okay, I'll come to One Church. Like, what's this thing about? And so we launched March 18th of 2018. That was a crazy day, a day I'll never forget, and we've been meeting ever since as a church. And since then, that group of 20 people, 50 more people have become committed to be members of One Church. That's pretty exciting. Since then, people have been giving, serving, and attending, and that's a pretty good growth that we've seen for a church plant in our culture today in the city of Pittsburgh. And a good chunk of you in this room right now, you represent that number. Your people since from March 18th, 2018 to now, somewhere in that time, you started coming to One Church, you started attending, you started serving, you started financially giving. You've become a committed member of who we are as a church body. This is exciting. And more of you have also started attending One Church on a semi-consistent basis. And you call One Church your church. You're like, okay, you know what? I want to be a part of church. I want to have my kids there. And so One Church has become that church for you. And it's crazy to think if everyone showed up because schedules are crazy, we'd be a church of almost 100 people, which is pretty exciting to go from 20 people in less than 2 years. That's where we're at right now. That's where we're going. We're growing in that sense. And so I'm celebrating that as a pastor. And if that's you and you're a part of this church from March 18th, from 2018 on, I'm excited for you and thank you for being a part of this thing called One Church. We've also, since that time, we have launched a number of different things. We've launched a thriving children's ministry. Last week at our family service, we had 22 kids here, which was chaos if you were here last week. It was nuts. And here's the kicker. A 23rd kid came onto the scene after service. Actually, someone who's pregnant, her water broke right after service last week, and she had a baby. Now, I'm not taking credit for it, but I think the family service did it. I think once she's like, look at this family service, this is awesome. Boom, let's become a family today. And so, but they're doing good. John and Jenna, their baby Bailey, she's came a little early, but she's healthy, she's doing well, she's growing. But we have this children's ministry that I think is thriving. In fact, when I tell people about One Church, they ask, hey, what's going well with One Church? And I tell them, our kids. They love coming here. They love having fun. They're learning about Jesus. We have volunteers that do an amazing job there. It's awesome. We have heard multiple times kids say, this is the best church I've been to. And that's not a competition. I just love to hear that kids are getting excited to come to church. This is awesome. In fact, one of the kids told his dad recently when he came here, he's like, I had so much fun, I don't think this is a church. And the dad was like, I think that's kind of the point. And I was like, actually, it kind of is the point. This is awesome. So, but we have a children's ministry we've started. We've launched multiple serving teams. We have a worship team. Fun fact, I didn't know Aaron March 18th of 2018. He was not anywhere close to being on the scene of helping with One Church. We were asking favors from other people, from other churches to come help do worship for us. We had Ben Carpenter, who was a part of One Church and moved from Wisconsin, do something he was never comfortable with, and that's leading worship for us for months at a time. And then Aaron came onto the scene, and he was able to develop a full band now. We see almost every single week. We develop a worship team, a hospitality team with donuts and refreshments here every week, an engagement team to help welcome people and help people get connected to One Church. We have a tech team, a setup and tear down team. We have multiple small groups that we've started. Lots of things have happened in these less than 2 years since we've launched. We've continued to serve our community as a church because we will always do that. One of our values of a church is having a community to serve, and that's what we'll do. In fact, we're in the midst of that season right now. We have our backpack drive going on right now for foster love. And what this is when someone gets placed with a foster child. These backpacks are filled based off age and gender with some supplies, some toiletries, some clothes and things like that. So when someone gets a child, they don't know who they're going to get. They may need some clothing and things like that. These backpacks are ready to go to them for free. And last week we had 20 of them and they were gone already, which is awesome. We've got more backpacks today. Pick them up if you didn't get one last week before you leave. We want to beat last year's number. We had 26 backpacks last year. If we cleared out today, we'll already break the record from last year. But I want to blow the record out of the water because I want to continue to be a church that serves our community. And what better way to serve them than to help families and kids for kids who don't have a home to go to? And so let's pick up some more backpacks today. Also, this Friday is our Aim into Action meal packing event at the convention center. And so I'm going to encourage you to sign up today so we can get our numbers if you're going to be coming to that. But we are going to be packing, us collectively with thousands of other volunteers, 1 million meals for food banks around our city. That's going to help feed people who don't have those resources on the ready. And so be a part of that with us. We've had other events that we've done, like our Love CV Day, where we go serve our community. We have different festivals. We put on a movie night with Collier Township every year. This is what we continue to do as a church. Something else we've done since we've launched is our financial giving has gone up as a church. And that's a big deal because it shows people are growing and being generous and being very worshipful in our mentality as a church to worship God by giving back some of those financial resources. And that's gone up since we've launched. That's exciting. That's really, really good news. And most importantly, we've seen 5 people since we've launched come and give their lives to Christ and publicly proclaim it through baptism. And that's what this thing's about, helping people follow Jesus. And one church, we've done some really, really good things together. And I'm proud to be the lead pastor of that. And I don't get a chance to say that very often. I just want to tell you guys really clearly, I'm honored to be the pastor of this thing. I love being the pastor of this. This has been the craziest journey of my life, and I love it because I get to do this thing with you guys together. And we've done some amazing things as a church. And as a pastor, I'm thankful for you, and I'm thankful for what God has done in us and through us over this time. But here's the thing. We're not done yet. In fact, I think we're just getting started because here's the deal. I still believe there are way more people to come to put their faith in Jesus, to be disciples of Jesus if we stay on our mission. There are still people to reach in our communities, in our neighborhoods. There are still opportunities to serve our communities. There are still ministries to start. There are still neighbors to love. There are still disciples to make, and we have some work to do to keep doing that. And here's kind of just the honest state of the fact. Here's where we're at as a church. Right now, we are still not financially sustainable as a church. And I know this is something people kind of wonder with a church plan, like, hey, how do you get this thing going? How do we make this thing work? Right now, we are not on our own. If our outside support was gone today, we wouldn't last much longer. We would use the rest of our reserves, and we'd be like, okay, now we're in trouble. So thankfully, we have some outside resources and churches still supporting us, but that's where we're at, knowing as a church, we're still not there yet. And I want to be open about that with you guys because here's the deal. This is something we do together. One of the goals we have as a church is to get sustainable on our own because what that means is we support ourselves. We function the ministries ourselves. We're able to pay for staffing and events and renting facilities and all those different things ourselves, and we want to continue to grow to that. We've grown a lot in that area in the past year. We need to keep growing in that moving forward. We're not there yet. This is a big goal. And also, one of the things that we're still at as a church is this. We are still limited on how we can launch and execute ministries as a portable church. We are a church that is, everything fits in a trailer. And so, every Sunday morning, people are here at 7 a.m. to get all this stuff set up. And then after service, we tear it all down, put it in a trailer, and go store it somewhere for the week. And so we are still limited in that. And I'm thankful for the school, and it's been a great home for us now for over 2 years, really, at this point. But we spend a lot of money to use it for 5 hours a week. And that limits us on what we can do as a church and for our community. And I want to be, as a pastor and as a church, be good stewards of our resources to help reach more people. And so there is still more work to be done as a church to continue to reach our mission and continue to achieve the mission that God's calling us to. So a lot of good stuff has happened. We still got work to do. And so that leads us to this. Let's keep going. And here's where we're going. And this is the biggest news that we're announcing today is this. We're moving. We're going to a new facility. And here's what's going to happen. Starting in January 12th, the plan is we will be meeting as a church in a building in Bridgeville. Now, here's what's happened. A church in Bridgeville, Vineyard Church, approached us a few months ago and said, hey, they know our story. We've gotten to know them a little bit. They approached us about coming to use their building and sharing space with them. And what this would do is a lot of different things, but after some discussion, some prayer, taking some leaders to kind of see the building and visualize it, because here's what the old building is. They bought this. It's an old Yugoslavian community center, which is awesome. Because what this building used to be is on the bottom floor was the bar. And people would come, they hang out, they drink, have a good old time. And upstairs was the dancing hall. And so they would go upstairs, they would dance and all that good stuff. And this is what this building used to be. And this church bought this a long time ago. They've kind of refitted it to be their church. And they are a church that said, you know what? We have this space that we don't use all the time. They're smaller church. And they know us and our dream and who we are as a church. They said, hey, why don't you guys come and share it with us. We'll rent this building to you. And we prayed about it, and we made the decision to move forward with it. Now, here's where we're at. The lease has not been signed yet. We want to get the details figured out. There's a lawyer working through that, but agreement's in place. And so hopefully we'll get that done. Hopefully, I'm hoping this week. We'll see. But that's coming. The agreement's in place. We'll get that signed. But on January 12th, the plan is that will be our first Sunday in this new building in Bridgeville. And so essentially we will be two churches using one building. And if that sounds messy to you, the answer to that is, yeah, it's messy. It's a little weird, a little wonky, especially in our community where like kind of churches tend to like just sit by themselves and they don't work together a lot. Now we have two churches sharing one building together, which I think is really awesome, actually, but it'll be a little messy. But this is what we're moving to do, but here's the benefits of it. Number one, it's going to be significantly cheaper for us to rent. And so it's going to save the church thousands of dollars, tens of thousands of dollars throughout this next year to rent this facility. It's going to help us a lot. It doesn't get us a sustainability just yet, but it gets us a whole lot closer. And that's something as the lead pastor, I'm celebrating because that's awesome. And I'm thankful for this church to reach out to us. But also here's what it does too. It gives us 7-day-a-week access. What we do when we rent the school, we get 5 hours of it, 7 a.m. to noon. And that's all we can do in that. If we want more, we have to spend more money for it. With this, we pay rent for this building, and we can get it 7 days a week. We can do classes and different ministry events. It'll allow us to do more things as a church. We can do more for the next generation. We can do more kids events and things like that. We can launch things for our youth ministry that I've been dreaming about and talking about for a while now. We can do stuff for our teenagers because we have more teenagers starting to connect with us as a church. We have opportunity to do different things for men's events, women's events, couples events, parenting events, things of that nature. We can launch different classes and small groups now because we have access to a building that's going to allow people to connect to it. One of the things that's coming now in 2020 is this thing called Alpha Course. And what Alpha is all about is it helps us break down the whole purpose of Christianity. Who Jesus is, why did he come, why did he have to die, what's the purpose of the church, all these things. This is what Alpha does, and I've seen it do amazing things in people's lives as they explore who God is and what this faith in Jesus is all about. One of the cool things about Vineyard, the church that's invited us to do this, they've already launched a Financial Peace University class, and we can just jump in with them when they launch that class because we'll be sharing that building together. And the things that we do, we can invite them to join in with that as well. And so this is a big deal for us to have a space that's not just 5 hours a week, it's 7 days a week now. That's exciting. And it's also a place that's going to help the status of our church. We have a home now, essentially, that we can say, hey, yeah, we're here. This is our building now. We're here every day of the week. We have, I'll have office hours type of things for people that they need to meet with the pastor, things like that. We can do more things. We have a home, and this is extremely helpful in our culture. I mentioned people were freaked out by the fact that we were meeting in our home before we launched. And here's still the truth. People are still freaked out by the fact we meet at a school. It just weirds them out. Like churches meeting in a school, how is that possible? Separation of church and state, all these different things. It gets kind of weird for people. This is going to help the people in our community kind of know, hey, this church isn't just like a flash in the pan. They're here for a little bit and they're gone. They have a permanent space now. This is a big deal for us to move forward. Also, a benefit to this building is it fits us. Number one, it's a smaller auditorium. We don't have 1,000 seats to deal with anymore. We have about 100 seats, which is great. It's going to feel more comfortable for us as a church. Did you guys notice last week that with 60-some people in this room, it felt fuller. It felt more energetic. That's a good thing to have, and we'll have this moving forward to this building, which I'm excited about. There's multiple children's classrooms in this building. There's a dining hall in this building. There's actually a full kitchen in this building. It provides lots of new resources for us to utilize as a church. Also, it puts us in the Bridgeville community, and I know it's a little further away for some of us, but here's the deal. It gives us a fresh opportunity to reach people in that community, which I think will be helpful for us to continue to live out our mission. Now, that's some of the benefits of the church, but here's the truth too. This is going to take some adjustment for us as a church as well. Number one, we will be sharing space with a different church, which means that we'll have to figure out, and it'll take some time to get used to that, to know how schedules operate. If they want to have an event, that we need to make sure we don't have an event at that time. We need to make sure we get stuff on a shared calendar together and figuring those things out. We'll be having 2 services on Sunday mornings that we'll go, there'll be a small break, and then their service will happen. So we'll kind of have to get out of their way. It's going to be kind of weird and wonky to get these things started and get used to sharing a space with them. But it's going to give us access to significant building space. Consistently, it's going to help us as a church. One other thing that we're going to have to do because of this, we'll have to change our service times. Both of us meet at 10 o'clock right now. And so we can't meet at the same time in the same building. It's not going to work that way. And so by the way their church works and the way our church functions, we're going to have to go a little earlier that day, and they're going to go a little later that day. Some of you guys who struggle to get up on Sundays, you're already thinking, this is awful. Now I have to get up even earlier. This is going to be rough. I get that. This is some of the adjustments we have to make. We can't go later because they have an hour and a half service, and it'll just, unless you want to have service at noon, it's just not going to work for us. And I don't want to have service at noon. This is not going to work. So we've got to go a little earlier. They're going to go a little later. Another thing for some of us to deal with, it might make our commute a little longer as well. It might be shorter for some of us. I know it'll be shorter for some of the people in this room, but for some of us, it might be a little longer. From here to the building right now, it's about 10 to 11 minutes, depending on traffic on Sunday mornings. Depending on which way you go, you can probably cut some time down, but it might make our commute a little longer on Sunday mornings. That's just what it is. We have to adjust to that. Another thing we have to do is this is an older building. I mentioned it's an old Yugoslavian community center. It feels like that a little bit. In fact, when you walk into one room that we're going to get painted as soon as we can, it looks like you're walking into Olive Garden because it's got this like these hills of Sicily on it with like these columns. I'm like, what is that? But that's what they decided to do, whatever. So we'll work. We have to do some projects. It's an older building. We want to do some cosmetic upgrades to it, and it's going to help us as a church, and it will help Vineyard as we're able to get those things done with them. But this is the nature of church planning. And people kind of wonder, like you see a church that's up and running, you think, oh, they're doing well. Behind the scenes, a church plant like us, it's about surviving every single day. It's about making decisions that's going to help us function as a church, to be financially sustainable long term, to make decisions to continue to reach out to our mission without blowing through our budget. This is part of the nature of a startup church like us. But here's the deal. With this move, we have an opportunity to give up some of our comforts as people for the sake of the kingdom. I want you to think about this for a second. We have an opportunity to give up some of our comforts for the sake of the kingdom, which means we have the opportunity to do something for the sake of other people, for loving them, to serve them, to live out our mission together as a church, to continue to make disciples as Jesus calls us to. And this building is our next step to lots of other next steps that I've outlined here. You know, when we move to this building, it's going to allow us to launch and do more of these things that we're dreaming about and talking about together. And by going to a new place, we're able to go forward with these things that we haven't been able to because of our current situation as a church. This is what 2020 vision looks like. It's scary, but it's clear. We make some steps to continue to be the church God calls us to be. So this is big news. But this only works if one thing happens. We do this thing together. We do this thing as one. In fact, that's the only way we can possibly pull this off. And so how can we all be a part of this solution together? The first thing I want to share is here's what I'll do as pastor. Number one, I want to assure you I would not have recommended this decision and move to our management team and our board of directors who makes these decisions and our leadership team if I did not believe this was the right move for us as a church. If it wasn't the right move, I would never have recommended it for it to be voted on by the board to get approved moving forward. Second, this decision was made with you and other people in mind. We spent a lot of time praying about it, discussing it, looking at the pros and cons to make sure this was going to be something that's going to help us as a church, but also help reach other people in our community as well, to help facilitate more ministry and help more disciples be made. It's all about our mission. And third, something I continue to do behind the scenes is I continue to work to build relationships and build contacts with people, family, and friends in churches to help bridge that financial gap that we haven't secured ourselves yet in the meantime. So I'm still fundraising to help make sure we can close that gap over this next year or two to make sure we can keep growing as a church so we can get sustainable on our own as well. This is what steps that I'm taking, and I'll continue to be this pastor to lead us as a church to the best of my ability so we can do this thing together. And so I want to say that in this decision, I'm going first. As a pastor, I want to make sure that's clear in the sense of I would never ask you guys to do something if I wasn't willing to do it myself. So we got to go this thing together. And so that's what I'm going to do. Here's what I'm asking you to do. First of all, before anything else, I want to thank you. I want to thank you for being a part of this thing and what you've already done and continue to do and all the different roles that you play. If you attend and are part of this thing on Sunday mornings, thank you. If you serve on a team in different areas of the church, thank you. If you give financially to this church, thank you. If you are just a part of one in any way, shape, or form, thank you, because we couldn't do this thing without you. And so now I'm asking you to do a couple of things. One, I'm asking you to commit to this move with us, that we need you to make this move along with us. And some of you will right away. Some of you are like, this is awesome. Let's do this. I'm in. Can we start next Sunday? The answer is no. We got to wait. But let's just go. Some of you guys are just excited about that, and I appreciate that. But some of you, understandably, have some questions and apprehensions because maybe of a longer commute, an earlier service time, or just general questions. That's understandable, and here's the thing. I want to help. I want to make sure that your questions and your concerns are heard in this season as a church. And so I want to make this very clear. I am available to talk about this. I am available to meet for coffee, to discuss more of the nuances of this move and what this is going to look like for us. If you have just simple questions, you want to email those to me, absolutely you can do that. It's just bstephenson@onechurchbgh.com. Email me. But also this, maybe some of you are like, I don't want to bother you, I don't want to mess with your time. You can. I promise you can. But if you don't want to, here's something I'm putting in place on my calendar. On Wednesday, December 4th, that evening at 6 o'clock, we are going to have an informational meeting more about this. This is a great chance to come to ask more questions, to see. I'm hoping we can actually have the meeting at the facility. I just got to get that locked in. But on December 4th, we will have this meeting available for us to talk about this more together. And if you want to be a part of that, fill out a Connect card before you leave and just put December 4th meeting. I'll make sure you're on the email list to make sure you know all the details to that leading up to it. And so I am available to talk, to answer questions and to help you understand everything we're doing with this move as a church. I'm also going to ask you to do this. I'm asking you to move with us, but I also challenge you to think about what's it look like to step into a larger role in this church. What's it look like to take a step of faith, to be more involved with us, to be all in with us as a church? Maybe it's a time for you to go from a casual attender to a committed member as one church, which means you're a part of serving and being a part of this thing and giving and saying, I'm all in with the mission that we are accomplishing as a church. Some of you in this room, some of you give financially, which I'm so thankful for, but you haven't jumped on a serving team yet. And I'm going to encourage you to think about what's it look like to maybe jump on a serving team as we get ready to move into this new building. To be on a team to help serve the needs of other people, to help facilitate ministries. And this is going to be one of our biggest needs moving to this new building is continuing to building our serving teams. And the biggest need we have is this. It's our hospitality and engagement team. These are actually two separate teams that are morphed into one. We want to separate these again. Our hospitality team of making sure our refreshments and coffee and all those things are good to go before everyone gets here, before our services. We need help making sure that stuff is facilitated. And if that is a gift that you have of hospitality and making things look nice and presentable when people come into our facility, this is a role you could serve. Other things we need help with is our welcome and engagement team, to be greeting people, to help people engage with what we're doing as a church. We need help with that to help them connect with one church. If you are someone who has the gift of just saying hi and you're friendly and people aren't scared by you, like this is a great chance for you to be a part of this thing. Come jump in with that team. But we also need more kids volunteers. We need more tech volunteers. We need more worship volunteers. If you have giftings in those areas, or if you're just intrigued to help in those areas, we could use you. Maybe it's an opportunity to explore this morning. If you have questions about that, stop me or one of our team members in the lobby. We'd love to help you explore to see what's a good fit for you moving forward. Jumping on a team could be a huge way you step in to help us facilitate this move and move forward to contribute to our mission. Another thing is maybe some of you in this room where people are part of this church, where you serve, which I'm so thankful for, and our team leaders are thankful for, but maybe you haven't started financially giving to the church. And I know this is always a touchy subject with churches. I know it's sensitive. I know it can be uncomfortable, but here's the deal. Jesus talked about money and giving and being generous more than he talked about heaven and hell. And a lot of times churches like to talk about heaven and hell a lot, but if Jesus' priorities was to talk about our resources more than anything else, what he obviously knew was sometimes our resources are a very touchy thing to talk about, so you wanted to address it. And this is what we have to continue to do as a church. And so here's what I'm going to invite you to do. To pray about it, to talk about it as a family, but start considering what's it look like to give generously to one church. First and foremost, as a way to worship God. That is the most important thing when it comes to giving financially. Yes, it goes to help facilitate our church and our ministries, but if it's done separately from worshiping God, we're missing the point. And it's so important to see. A pastor used to tell me this way, when it came to offering and giving financially, it was never that a church wanted something from you, it's a church wanted something for you. And that resonated with me for so long, and hopefully it resonates with you too, is this is not something that I'm asking to get something from you. I actually want to encourage you to get something for yourself. It's a chance to worship God with everything you have, including your resources. It's a chance to be a part of something that God's calling you to be a part of to help achieve its mission. And so this is what I want to encourage you to think about. To worship God, also to be a part of one, because this makes us, when I say working as one to help people follow Jesus, this is the way we work as one together, because we give some of our financial resources back to make this thing happen. And it all goes to our mission. Everything we do, all the money that comes in on Sundays or online throughout the week, it goes to our mission to achieve the goal of working as one to help people follow Jesus. And this takes us a step closer then to sustainability, to being a church that can kind of stand on our own 2 feet. I am so thankful for the churches that have helped us get off the ground, and the individuals and people from all over the country are helping to do that. But I want to be a church that grows to the point where we can say, listen, as a church, as a community, we are sustaining ourselves, and that's something we could celebrate together. Because here's the deal. God always calls us people to take next steps. And we as a church are taking next steps in 2020. This is our clear 2020 vision. We are going to take next steps. And it may be uncomfortable, it may feel bold, it may feel scary, but here's the deal, and this is the one thing. God calls people to big and bold moves to help others know him. God calls people to big and bold moves to help others know him, and we cannot be different from that. As a church, we have to be willing to take big, bold moves together to keep achieving our mission. So this is what we're going to be doing moving forward. And so this is our family talk. This is our calibration time. This is a chance for those who go, okay, what's One Church doing? What are we doing now that we're almost 2 years old? This is it. This is our next step, and this is going to lead to more next steps. It's going to lead to more ministry opportunities, but most importantly, it's going to lead to more disciples like us, making more disciples moving forward. And this is what we're all about. And we won't stop until we don't have a mission field left. And right now we have a huge field of mission to accomplish with people around us in our community. This is what we're doing. This is our next steps. And we need to do this together for the glory of God and for the sake of making more disciples. You see, Jesus didn't come just to create some fun little club to hang out with and go, look at us, we know this Jesus guy. Jesus came to start this movement of people being rescued and redeemed by him through his death and resurrection. And everything we do as a church is meant to help people know, listen, that God is not angry with you. God is not judging you. God loves you. God loves you so much that he sent his son to come and rescue and redeem you and give you in life both now and for eternity in the future. This is who God is. This is the message of Jesus. And so we as a church, we continue to teach that message, to continue to tell people about that message. And each week as a church, we worship that message through communion. So here's what I'm going to do. We're going to wrap up our time today with some communion. And here's what I want you guys to do. I want you guys to take some time and just reflect. And think about what I just laid out in front of you. And think about this. Think about every excuse you could think of why this may not be a move that you and your family can make. Longer commute, earlier service time, maybe it's just inconvenient, whatever that may be. And I want you to ask this, God, help me to trust you through these barriers right now. Help me to take a bold and big step as a church together, as one church, to continue living our mission that you've called us to. Because, man, I can think of so many reasons of why I was never worthy enough for God to send Jesus to come and die for me. I'm a sinner. I'm selfish. I treat people poorly sometimes. I can think of lots of excuses of why I'm not worthy of God's love. And yet God still relentlessly pursues me, relentlessly loves me, and still Jesus came and died for me. And so because of that, I'm a disciple. So I'm committed to following Jesus. And my life's work, whether I'm a pastor or not, is to make other disciples. And so for me as a pastor, I'm excited to make this next step. It's for us as a church together, we can make more disciples together. So I'm going to pray. We're going to pass out communion and take some time to reflect, and then we will come together as one church to take communion together, to be reminded of why we even exist as a church, and be reminded that we still have a mission to live out. Let's pray. Father God, thank you so much for today and this church you've built. God, we started with 9 people. 9 people who had no idea what's going to happen or how we're going to do this. But God, you moved way before we ever got here. And you have brought people together. You've brought people back to you. You've started ministries through the people of one church. And God, we're thankful for that. So God, we're excited and we're praying, we're hopeful that you continue to do that as we make decisions as a church to move to a different facility, to continue to make disciples, but God, to take big, bold steps, to trust you and to help other people know you. Because that's what you did for us through your son, Jesus, and it's your name we pray.